Uh, how's everybody today? You know, last week I did this talk on living on our wild side, letting our, we talked about wolves and letting that out. And the next day I received a Facebook post from one of our congregants, a demure, quiet, younger woman, who said that she had taken me up on that and was so inspired by the talk that she had dyed her hair purple, gotten new tattoos, a couple of new piercings, taken off all of her clothes and jumped in the river and gone swimming. And so this morning, Twyla shows up with purple hair. I'm not sure if those are real piercings, but they're, and tattoos. Stand up, sweetheart. I love it. I love when people get playful. You know, spirit is playful, isn't it? You know, people comment that they come to this church and it's not so serious. You know, it's more of a playful, fun place to be. And it's because I know that spirit is playful. That's one of the aspects of it. You know, some of the churches that we've grown up in, we were not taught that. They didn't particularly emphasize that aspect of spirit. Let's just put it that way. And but I really truly know that spirit is playful, and we are playful. You know, if you ever watch a new baby, whether it's a human baby or an animal baby, they're playful, right? I mean, that's the quality that we're born with. You know, so I just encourage us to continue to allow it to develop and to be part of that. I also, before I get into the talk, wanted to talk, because I was just thinking while we were sitting there about Beltane, the Celtic holiday which we celebrate today, May Day. And it was celebrated in Ireland and Scotland and the Isle of Man, kind of those cold northerly, you know, off of the British Isles, you know, sort of areas. And you know, by now, of course, even there, you know, it's warmed up and things are growing. You know, here in Reading, you know, things warm up and grow starting in January, but you know, but there it takes until about, you know, April or May before the weather kind of starts to get consistently good. But what I loved about it was the traditional celebrations of this were that they would build a couple of bonfires in the community, in the center of the community. And each household would then take and douse the house fire that they had normally going throughout the winter, and then relight the fire from the bonfire that was in the center of the town. And so everybody's home was lit from the same fire. And I love that sense of community, that there's a connection between each home to the fire that's at the center of the community with that celebration. And there's just something about that pardon me, but warms my heart. And it's a wonderful model for, you know, can we let ourselves be warmed by the fire that's at the center of our community? So I just was moved by that and wanted to speak that. So we're working, of course, this year on the theme of a world that works for all. And today we're looking at the idea of my mind is a center of divine activity. One of my favorite Thomas Troward quotes, my mind is a center of divine activity. Think of that. You're a power center for the universe. You're a power center for the universe, right? It's everywhere present, but it gets focused in you. And you get to create. You get to send out that power in the way, shape, and form that you want to. The quote that we have for the day comes from What We Believe. We believe that life is the logical and necessary outcome of the infinite self-knowingness of God. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. There's a famous quote that's been attributed to a whole lot of people, but as far as I can tell was first said way back by Timaeus of Locris, way back in one of the Greek philosophers. And it is, God is a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. God is a circle whose center is everywhere. You and I are centers of God. And whose circumference, in other words, the outer limit, is nowhere. There is no outer limit. So we are centers operating in a completely infinite place of expansion. Isn't that cool? You know, however good your life is, it can get better. However bad your life is, it can get better. You know, because we're working in an infinite good. And we can expand and expand and expand. You know, I've talked before about how when I first got into doing, you know, personal growth work, it felt like peeling layers off the onion, and there's always another layer to peel off. Anybody else ever kind of have that feeling? Yeah, okay. I revisioned it, reframed it when I realized it's like I'm expanding out into the next layer of good. That's not the same energy as peeling a layer off the onion. Now, I might have to peel a layer off the onion to get there, but what I'm focusing on not is what I'm going to lose, but what I'm going to gain, which is the greater good, the greater expression of good. So we're here playing in that. God, the infinite, creates by self-contemplation. This is what Troward teaches us and Ernest Holmes. God creates by self-contemplation. It contemplates itself. It contemplates the aspect of itself, and that's what shows up in form. So both Genesis, the first chapter of Genesis, and early part of the Gospel of John, both refer to this. So in Genesis, God contemplates its nature as light. Let there be light. Okay? Now remember, the sun, moon, and stars weren't created until much later in this story. So there's no outer source of light. This is just the light of Spirit itself. Let there be this light that I am. Thomas Troward says that there are the three main attributes of God are first life. Life has to happen first before there's anything else. And then love, because life is here to enjoy itself. And that's an aspect, and life has to love itself in order to enjoy itself. And then the third main aspect of life is, or of Spirit, is light. And so it's contemplating itself as light. And it says, let there be light, and there is light. Okay? The light's its own light. It's followed, of course, by life. What comes next is, in the creation process, is setting up the conditions for life. The waters get separated, the firmament gets raised, and the vegetation shows up. That's the first 3 days, is light, the firmament arising, and the vegetation showing up, okay? So there's light and life being created by Spirit's self-contemplation. It didn't come from somewhere. There wasn't a bunch of muck to muck around with. There's the old story of the scientists who come to God and say, we don't need you anymore. We kind of got it handled. We've figured out cloning, and we figured out how to do creation. And God says, great, that's wonderful. Show me. And so they reach down, they pick up a little bit of dirt and from the ground to put into their thing, and God says, wait, get your own dirt. So God creates out of itself, out of its own self-contemplation, out of its own existence. And because we're centers of divine operation, guess what? So do we. So do we. John talks about, in the beginning was the Word. Now the actual word, or it was translated as word, is from the Greek, it's gnosis. And gnosis really means knowing. It's a deep knowingness, a deep knowing. And so in the beginning was this knowing, was this deep consciousness of knowing. See, God doesn't create by on a whim. It creates by knowing itself, by contemplating itself, self-contemplation. Okay? Have you ever noticed that your whims don't tend to show up, but what you contemplate does? Okay? So we're here to contemplate. We're here to learn from that. So it's that deep knowing, and it becomes flesh, which is to say it takes form in this world so we can see it in measurable, tangible form. And so that's the divine process of creation. Spirit, and then we as agents of Spirit, we as divine centers of activity, contemplate what it is that we want, what it is that we're here to do. So as individualized points, we're participators, we're co-creators in this process. We get to play in this process of creation. See, it was started before we showed up in consciousness, but it has developed itself as conscious beings. That's you and me, right? Some are conscious. Yeah, Luke is conscious and loud over there, okay? And I know we're all conscious. Some are quietly conscious, and that's just fine. But we are conscious beings. We get to play. We get to develop the world that we want to. I was watching, you're not going to believe that I can get this into a talk, but I'm going to. I was watching Formula One racing the other day. Cynthia always loves it when I watch Formula One racing. Oh, God, again. And they were talking about each team puts, at the beginning of the season, brings a car to the racetrack that's the best car they can do, the best car they can make. And then over the season, they develop the car more. Okay? So Spirit brings us. Each of us is the best we can be at birth, and creation is the best it can be, and then we develop it. We get to play with it. We get to make it even better. That's the idea of creating a world that works for all. Okay? We get to play with it. Isn't that fun? We get to be consciousness engineers and drivers in this wonderful racetrack of life, or pathway of life. What? Well, Formula One doesn't just go straight; they actually have curves. But yes. So we are consciousness becoming self-aware. We are the infinite universe becoming self-aware. It's been said that we are the universe becoming conscious of itself. And we're a point where that's happening. Each of us is a point of the universe becoming conscious of itself, to experience itself. And we get to play in that game. The process we use to create is the divine process, which is the process of self-contemplation. So that brings up the question, what do I contemplate? My friend Andy Anderson has a wonderful song that says, I'm always thinking, you're always thinking, but do you really think what you think about? I'm always thinking, you're always thinking, but do we really think what we're thinking about? Are we conscious of what we're thinking about? Because what we're thinking about, what we're contemplating, is what we're creating in our lives. Now, I know I've gone through times where I'm thinking of things that I don't really want to create, but I'm thinking about them. I'm contemplating them. And guess what shows up? Dang it. So my attention is my contemplation. What is it that I'm putting my attention on? I recently had I have a friend on Facebook who's from CSL up in Seattle who loves to post, and I'm not saying this to be political, I'm just putting what he posts on there, anti-Donald Trump stuff on his Facebook page, frequently, a lot, okay? Now, I'm not doing any judgments about Donald Trump, I'm just saying this person really doesn't like him. And finally, somebody got on his Facebook page and a comment and says, you do realize by continuing to post this stuff, you're just bringing more attention to him. And it's like, yeah, let it go. Let it go. Do you really want to spend that much time contemplating Donald Trump if you don't like Donald Trump? Do we spend time contemplating what we don't like? Do I spend time contemplating my checkbook that's not enough? Do I spend time contemplating the injury on my body or my sickness? Do I spend time contemplating my relationship that's not working? Do I spend time contemplating what I don't want? Or do I start to say, wait, time out? Do I contemplate where I want to go? I recently had a friend of mine who mentioned that she was in a conversation with somebody and she finally looked at them and said, are you being part of the problem or part of the solution? Okay? And that question is, what are you contemplating? What are you putting your attention on? See, Michael Beckwith, I love this phrase from him, says the universe doesn't care what we want. It doesn't care what we want. It cares what we pay attention to. It cares what we're interested in. And what I'm interested in with my consciousness is what develops more and more and more. So what am I interested in? And so just noticing that. I imagine it's like my consciousness is a beacon of light, and it shines on, whatever it shines on is what's going to start to grow, it's what's going to start to show up in my life. And so on what do I focus on and shine it? Okay. What do I focus and shine my consciousness on? I want to talk about another aspect of this process, though, because we as religious scientists tend to talk a lot about thought and word and mind. Have you noticed? Okay? And we tend to focus on the mental and the intellect. We've been accused of being a very mental practice. Okay? The other night we were doing a board retreat, and one of the things that came out of that board retreat was a real focus on the heart energy of the board. The heart energy, the connectedness of the heart from the board. And there's this heart wisdom that is also our creative aspect. And in truth, that heart wisdom is where our real knowing lives. We talked about in the Gospel of John, the knowing. It's really in the heart. Because the mind can think of stuff and then it goes boom, boom, boom. Have you ever noticed your mind kind of can go all over the place? But the heart starts to anchor that in, starts to know it at a deeper level, and you feel it in your own beingness in a whole different way. And so what if we were to say that our heart is truly the energy that creates? When we talk about the capital M mind, that mind includes not just the intellect, but also includes the heart. can I start to create from my heart? And what does my heart contemplate? What does my heart contemplate? Am I contemplating feelings of hurt? Am I contemplating feelings of joy? What am I contemplating? So we know that everything grows and improves when we love on it. You know, people talk to their plants and love on their plants. They talk to their children and love on their children. They talk to their puppies and love on their puppies, right? Yeah. They talk to their cats and they just do whatever they want to anyways. But with the exception of cats, which are outside of the normal universe, no, what we talk to, what we emphasize, what we add love to is what truly grows and what truly increases. The other day, yesterday in fact, I was teaching a spiritual mind treatment workshop here. And one of the things we talked about was that in each of the 5 steps, we stay with the step until we feel that step. Until we feel the step. God is until I feel that God really is. It's not just a rote prayer. You know, I grew up with, rote prayers like the Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. And, after a while, you don't have a whole lot of feeling with that prayer. Now, it's a beautiful, deep, rich prayer, and you can really get into it if you want to. But most of us grew up with, you just say it rote, Hail Mary, full of grapes, the Lord is a tree. The Catholics in the room know what I'm talking about. That was the child's version of Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. If you ever went to a Catholic grade school, you probably, or if you were a kid in the Catholic Church, you heard that one. Okay, but you said those prayers oftentimes without feeling, without any depth to them. And so what our prayer process is besides being an affirmative prayer process, is also a prayer process where we know each step until we move on to the next step, where we feel the step. God is the love of this entire universe until I feel that. And then I am, because God is, I am the love of this entire universe until I feel and know that. And we go on through each step until we really, in a way, get it into our heart knowledge, our heart wisdom, and allow it to create from there. Okay? So our heart wisdom is where we engage our creativity with the world. It says in the Bible, as a man thinketh in his heart, not thinketh in his head, thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so the question is, how do you think? How do you feel? What is it that you're contemplating with your heart? And just noticing that, and noticing that if you want to manifest something new, the way that I think of it is I love it into my life. When I'm paying attention, I love it into my life. I allow my heart and energy to surround whatever it is that I would love to have more of in my life. And allow myself then to become more aligned with it through that heart energy. Through that heart energy. And then I allow that to be loved into my life. And when I love something into my life, it has a different energy than when I try and force it into my life. You ever notice that? Okay? Yeah, we've all tried to force things. We've tried to force things usually out of either fear or anger, okay? Or sometimes hurt. We try and force something to happen into our lives to compensate for that. When instead we slow down, we take a breath, and we say, let me love that into my life. Let me just love that into my life. It adds a different energy. I think of it as the movie, I think it was like Water for Chocolate, where the woman was cooking, and if she was sad when she cooked, everybody, when they ate her meal, would cry. If she was angry, they all had upset stomachs. And when she was happy, they all just felt this beautiful love and joy from the food. And in a way, although it's an exaggeration, in a way it's actually really quite true. Whatever we create, whatever we put in, we imbue with our feelings, we imbue with our heart energy, and that's also the energy that shows up. So not only does it show up as the thing we want, but it shows up with the energy we want. And most of us want an energy that's loving, joyous, free, that sort of energy. Ernest Holmes tells us that the formula for creating anything is that a thought plus a feeling equals a result. A thought plus a feeling equals a result. And so whatever it is that I'm thinking about, and if I can add that heart energy, that feeling to it, I produce the result. A thought without any feeling, you don't have enough energy to make it manifest. Okay? A feeling, just a feeling without any thought to guide it, is just kind of goopy all over the place, right? But a thought, a focused, lasered thought, added, accompanied by and joined with a feeling, creates a result, and creates the result we want. So I want us to think about that as we go through it. There was a wonderful Facebook post, the St. Albans Episcopal Church post, that I shared it on my Facebook page. And it provides us with something to think about. And I want us to take this in for a moment. Let us feed the hungry, house the homeless, stop the killing, and provide medicine for the sick. When we have accomplished that, then we can sit around and argue about religion. Isn't that great? What's our priority? I remember in the corporate world, there's a thing called majoring in minors. Okay? We are focused on the little stuff instead of really dealing with what really needs to be dealt with, the big stuff of whatever a project is or whatever the company is about. Majoring in minors. It's a wonderful way to stay busy, but not really deal with what needs to be dealt with. Okay? And so I invite us as we think about this, we've had, I hear, sometimes occasional little grumbles from the church and from certain people in the church, and oftentimes it's what I call majoring in minors. It's like, can we, yeah, you didn't like the Christmas Eve service, okay? It's 3.5 months later. Can we let it go? And can we take a look at the focus of, it's true. Can we take a look at the focus of, we're here to create a world that works for all. We're here to teach people how to liberate their lives, okay? I'm sorry the Christmas Eve service went a little longer than you wanted it to. How terrible that you had to spend time with beautiful music and wonderful people and uplifting messages and a great celebration. I'm sorry. And I don't mean to be flip. We're going to change it around this year. It's going to be shorter and all that stuff. But, but 3.5 months later is a really long time to be hanging on to that, and I'm talking about a specific incident. Okay? What are we focused on? Are we focusing on the big things in the world? Feeding the hungry. You're providing for the poor, providing for the sick, helping the people who really need it. Just right here in Redding, there's people who are homeless, there's people who are hungry, there are people who are drug addicted, there are people who are being sold into sexual slavery right here in this town. We just had a presentation about that at our Interfaith Forum meeting a couple weeks ago. Can we deal with this stuff here? Can we get bigger than, I didn't like what Reverend David was wearing today. And it's a disease, by the way. It's not just in this church. I remember when Kathy Ann up in Seattle would change her hair about every 4 to 6 weeks, hair color. And there was a little group of people who would sit there and evaluate her hair color and whether it worked for her or not, and whether her outfit that she was wearing that particular Sunday worked for her or not, And here's this person, sharing beautiful, life-changing wisdom, powerful speaker, wonderful teacher, and I don't know if her cowboy boots really go with that dress. And should she even be wearing cowboy boots on the podium? So, it's not just this church. We all have this little tendency, don't we? I mean, I get wrapped up in little bitty stuff, right? And we all do it. But can we catch ourselves in that and lift ourselves up and say, what's really more important? What's really more important? What's the big vision? And contemplate that. So this week I want to invite us to do only two spiritual practices. I'm going to take it easy for you. Number 1, pay attention to what I contemplate. Yeah, pay attention to what I contemplate. Think about what you're thinking about. Pay attention to where I place my attention and my interest. A couple of friends I know have a little thing, a little alarm on their watch, their phone that goes off every hour. And the purpose of it is to just say, what are you thinking about right now? It's just a reminder, what am I thinking about right now? And every hour, it's just a little kind of a check-in. What am I thinking about right now? And so, whatever it is we need, where am I placing my attention? And then am I focused on what it is that I want to manifest? So that's part 1, is pay attention to what I want to contemplate. And number 2, take the time to contemplate from the heart what I do want. Take the time to contemplate from that deep knowing, what is it that I really do want? And I'm going to spend some time and attention on that from my heart space. You know, sometimes I find that just by putting your hand on your heart helps to connect into that energy. What is it that I truly want? I'm going to contemplate that. And so as I have my hand on my heart, I contemplate what it is that I would love to see more of in my life, in the world, in wherever it is. So that's our 2 spiritual practices this week. Are we good for that? Yeah. Contemplate, or pay attention to what you're contemplating, and then contemplate what it is that you would like to experience more of. I want to close with a quote from Jack Kornfield, great Buddhist teacher. Wisdom is eternally gracious. It sees the world as it is, vast and ever-changing. It allows us to become ourselves, to awaken to the actual experience of existence without getting caught in it. We eventually recognize our shared experience, and a natural sense of respect arises. When we look through the eyes of wisdom, and I think of wisdom as that heart energy, when we look through the eyes of wisdom, we dissolve separation and move into the compassionate state of loving awareness. I invite you this week to spend time with some loving awareness in your life. And by the way, take some of that loving awareness and put it on your own self. Because oftentimes we're the hardest on ourselves. So contemplate yourself with love. You're a wonderful, beautiful being right now, right as you are. Let's move into prayer. So I know that this infinite presence, this one presence, this love, this life, this light, this joy, is all that there is. It is the only thing operating in the universe. It is the only game in a very large town. And I know that because of that, and because it has taken the time to express itself, that it has shown up as each of us. So I and you and each of us are one of that infinite presence, right here, right now. We are already, just by our very beingness, life, light, love, joy. We are that right now. Whether we remember it, whether we know it, whether we're aware of it or not, we still are that right here and right now. And so I speak my word that each of us this coming week spends time to become aware of that, to contemplate that truth of our own being, to allow and choose how it is we would love to have that life energy, that light, that love, that joy show up in our lives, whether it's a general way or a specific way. We take the time to contemplate that, and out of that contemplation, allow that manifestation to show up. We contemplate what we want. We let go of giving time to what we don't want. We let go of that. And so as we spend our time in that heart energy, in that guided by wisdom heart energy, we allow ourselves to love into life all that is necessary for our thriving nature, for our joyous existence, for our full expression of the God nature that we are. We do this with ease and grace. It becomes easy to do this because it is natural. It is how Spirit creates, and because we are one with Spirit, we are divine centers of that one mind. It's easy for us to do. And I'm grateful for all the good, for all the love, for all that comes out of this, for all the expression of the true nature of God and us that shows up as we simply open to the flow and allow it to happen and contemplate it into being. And so I release this word, knowing that it takes root in the soil of what we call the law, the soil of the infinite consciousness, and blossoms and blooms into a beneficial life, love, joy for each and every person here. And for this I'm eternally grateful. We call it good, and we call it so, and we affirm that by saying together, and so it is.